Hello there. In this session, we're going to understand what chaos engineering is and how you can use Chaos Studio in the BCDR and make sure that your application is resilient enough to handle any faults. So to start with, let's understand first what chaos engineering is. So basically, chaos engineering is a methodology by which you inject a real world faults in your application to run controlled fault injection experiments. So just to give you an example of it, chaos engineering is will make sure to give or to inject some of the faults or cause. We would like to make that your application to be disturbed, and once your application is disturbed, then we will see how we are seeing our application behaving. Will it is able to tolerate the load or tolerate the fault which we are injecting? So that's what we call as a chaos engineering. We will deliberately break the environment just to see how it works, how our application behaves, how our application reacts. So in the case of real world outage, how your application will be able to tackle those kind of faults. So that's what we meant by the chaos engineering. So Azure Chaos Studio provides that chaos engineering inbuilt into the studio, which is called service called as Azure Chaos Studio, by which with the help of Azure Chaos Studio you will be able to inject some of the faults into your application. And once you do that, you will be able to test or check the fault tolerant, how your application is fault tolerant to the problems or to the disturbance which you are injecting in your application. With the help of Azure Chaos Studio, we can do that. So Azure Chaos Studio is a managed service that uses chaos engineering to help you measure, understand, improve your cloud application and service resilience. So with the help of injecting some of the faults to your application, you are making sure that how much your application is resilient and how much it can tackle the load on the environment. So basically, resilience is the capability of a system to handle and recover from disruption. Like I said, we are we are deliberately injecting our application to make sure that how your app will behave. So, application disruption can cause error failures that can adversely affect your business or mission. So, in the live outages and all, there are chances that whenever any outage happen, your business may get impacted. So to test that how resilient your application is, we will inject the fault. For example, we will shut down our VMs. For example, any malware came to your virtual machines which you are running. So if I inject something using this Chaos Studio, how my application will behave, right? So basically in simple terms, in layman terms, I will say we are just testing or checking out the immunity of your application. For example, in our body, we have immune system. So if you eat something wrong, that will be a test of your body, right? That if your body is immune to handle those changes. Likewise, we are just trying disruption. We are doing some disruption. We are adding some faults to your application just to make sure that how your application is tolerant to that disturbances. So, whether you're developing or migrating or operating Azure application, it's important to validate and improve your application's resilience. So, with the help of Azure Chaos Studio, you will be able to achieve those things. Now, Chaos Studio helps you to avoid negative consequences by validating that your application responds effectively to the disruptions and failures. You can use Chaos Studio to test resilience against the real world incidents like outages or high CPU utilization. So there are certain faults which we'll be discussing, that if you inject those faults in your application, how your application is going to behave. It should not have any negative impact. If there is an outage, your workload still should up and running. So With the help of Chaos Studio, you will be able to test that particular scenario, that if any outage happen, how your application is behaving, whether you have developed a resilient application. If not, then if there is a scope of improvement, then it will give you a hint before any real outage happen, that hey, your application is not resilient enough, so that you can develop that particular, or you can make some improvements in your application. I hope this makes sense. So we'll see you in the next. I hope all you're able to understand these concepts, and in the next we're going to understand more concepts on this. Thank you. We'll see you in the next session.